Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. We're, we are broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. We will continue our coverage here of the Richard Allen trial. He's accused of killing Abby and Libby out of Delphi on February 13th, 2017. Hoping to make this your one-stop shop, consolidating all of the information and all of the updated information. We do have a lot of information to go over, but if you feel that something that is just breaking now, as far as news information that might be relevant to the live stream, please send me an email, sleuthintuition@gmail.com, or share it in the chat. Welcome, NTC, Doris Brockman, Zuzu, Red Queen, Night Shadow, my guy Don Spain, Sleuth in the Gang. I like that. Pitbull Mom, Audrey Kessler, Gail, CJK, Beth, how are you? Jerry, how you doing? Diamonds. Shadowbox. Hope you're having a great day. Cindy, good to see you. Cheeks, what up? Stacy Skinner. Megan, hello. All right, let's get into it. I just wanted to check the Indiana My case for Richard Allen real quick. Last I checked, there was no updates. If you guys have any word or anything that's been discussed in trial so far today, let me know. Silas, good to see you. Kitty, how you doing? Tam B, Sensei, how are you? Shimona V, Nixon, D, what's up, D? Hiawatha. Frank, what's the word? Did you make it into the courtroom today? Daily Survivor. All right, I'm not seeing anything new on the docket. So nothing there to report. Oh, that sucks, Frank. Sorry about that. Good to see you, little one. T Lemon. Because his attorneys have G. What's up, Doris? Tamby says, it does seem kind of quiet so far. Seems very quiet. I haven't seen any updates. Some of the things we can talk about, the yellow rope. So a lot of these conspiracy theories have been pretty much debunked. We've learned that there was a lot of blood at the crime scene. So kind of hard to believe that they were brought back there if their clothes were damp and there's blood all over the place. That kind of eliminates that theory. Luminol was used on the entire scene near the girls. And we're getting reports on Richard Allen's demeanor, specifically during the part where the crime scene photos were shown to the court. What's up, Cheryl? Shout out to Chi-Town. Jill, always good to see you. Kate? I am seeing some discussion, Kate, about the tip, but I haven't been able to kind of verify any of that information. So I think they were talking a little bit about the lost tip narrative and how it wasn't so lost. But I don't want to get into that until I can verify it. So like we've been doing every live stream here covering the trial, we're going to do a quick recap. Go over some of the photos that are being shared by reporters. I mean, people are getting extremely comfortable from what I can see. I mean, it looks like a slumber party. This photo is from Caitlin Kendall. I yanked it off her X feed. Looking like Skid Row. Yeah, we're going to talk about that shadow. He has seen them before. But so were all of them have been shown them before. That weekend, I think the family, they got a chance to look at the crime scene. They were still shocked by it. Shimona V says, Angela Fanta? Who's that? I don't know who that is, sorry. Okay, looks like we might have something here from WTWO. Looks like it was posted about 20 minutes ago. Oh, that sucks, Doris. I hope he feels better soon. Okay, let's see what these guys are talking about.
Just about an hour ago by Special Judge Fran Gull, and it was the first.
Okay, looks like that's the most up to date. So apparently there was a rape kit done, which is good. Seems like common sense to me. The phone was under a shoe, under Abby. Sounds like they were trying to preserve that phone, possibly hide it from the killer. And I'll go ahead and give you guys my theory. It's a little bit disturbing to go through. It's very detailed and graphic. We'll get to that a little bit later after we go over all of the facts here surrounding the case. Let's welcome in. See, I missed Violet Dragon. Good to see you. Kitty Cat says Kit Hanley TV. Okay, let's take a look there. Thank you. At Kit Hanley. Okay, thank you for that. All right, looks pretty new. 24 minutes ago. So Kit Hanley at Kit Hanley TV. She says CSI took swabs from the girls, and where there appeared to be blood around the scene. Sexual assault kits were completed by forensic pathologist. There was an additional trace fiber found on Abby's upper left arm. Abby was wearing Libby's black sweatshirt and blue jeans. Defense asked if there was any connection to the swapped material to Allen, the DNA, and the investigator said he was not aware of any. CSI is Brian Olehi with ISP. Defense asked about placement of sticks. They said he thought it was an effort to conceal, but didn't think it was meant to send a message or communicate anything. Defense asked if one stick had a man-made cut. Am I saying that right? Olahi? Said not that he saw. Investigator said no testing on sticks. Defense asked if any smaller shoe impressions from a girl were found. Investigator said no. Investigator said they are unable to give an exact time of death, saying time of death is imprecise science. Kit Hanley titled this Bullet Notes. The state objected to defense calling it the magic bullet, and Judge Gull sustained, saying that was improper. No photos taken of the ground after bullet was removed. Investigators said they found no defensive wounds on Libby. Good to see you, Violet. Yeah, thank you. Puddle of blood the size of a tea towel. Not much at all. That's a lot. All right, let's take a look at Angela here. All right, this is from about 20 minutes ago. Was the undergrowth disturbed under Abby to suggest she was dressed there? CSI had no indication. When evidence is tested at the lab, how was it tested and resealed? CSI says resealed and initialed, same container. Is it common practice to change gloves when collecting different pieces of evidence? CSI says absolutely. Was the bullet collected in an envelope or a pill box? Answer was an envelope. What identifies when evidence has been opened? Specific mark and seal and sign. Hey, Truffles, welcome to the Sleuth Crew. Make sure you guys make them feel at home. Okay, and then also during day 2, I don't know if we talked about this, but we had somebody by the name of Jake Johns, lifelong Delphi resident. He also knew the German family. Johns testified that he parked at Riley Park and had no real reference point for where to search. However, Johns testified that he was to look for tie-dyed shirt. Johns testified that his search group followed the riverbed to the Monon High Bridge. His group took about 4 hours to search while being spread 10 feet apart. Johns eventually spotted the tie-dyed shirt in the water coming up 625 Private Drive. Welcome in, B.D. Hubbard. Okay, this was sent to me by one of you guys earlier today, and this information was provided to me by a reporter and a YouTuber. I think it was Frank Meister who first told me about this. Basically, Richard Allen was kind of rocking back and forth when they started discussing the crime scene photos. So this article touches on that. This one's titled Evidence from Ground Zero, Upsetting for Jurors and Family. Delphi trial enters third day of testimony. This is dated October 22nd today, about an hour ago. Bridge guy, a bullet, and the brutal murder of 2 girls. Carroll County prosecutor Nick McClellan said the case against Richard Allen was about these 3 things. He wasn't wrong. Allen is charged with 4 counts of felony murder in the deaths of Abby Williams and Libby German. The Carroll County teens took advantage of a day off school to explore along the Monon High Bridge Trail. They never made it home. The state of Indiana presented 116 exhibits Monday. Among those, graphic crime scene photos of the girls taken by ISP CSIs, Jason Page, Dwayne Datsman, and Brian Olahi. Am I saying that right? Olahi? On February 13th. First on the scene, Carroll County Sheriff Deputies Darren Giancola and Drew Yoder were the first law enforcement on the scene. The jury heard from Giancola first Monday. He told jurors he was scheduled for a day off on February 13th at 10 p.m. That evening, he heard word of 2 missing girls. He came in to help, he said. Giancola was tasked with looking into an iPad that belonged to one of the girls. When the lock screen prohibited access, he drove to the Monon High Bridge Trail to help with the search. This is in quotations. I teamed up with civilians and fire department personnel. We searched south of the bridge, making a line from the creek to the private drive that runs under the bridge. The group pushed north until around midnight. During the search, Giancola said something stood out to him. As I go underneath the bridge alongside a large section of limestone and cinder brick, I saw a wash of leaves downhill showing bare ground. He said it stood out as odd. The bare ground was on what has been described as the area where the girls traveled down the hill, after being instructed by a man recorded by Libby on the bridge. When search team members spotted that, they thought was a shirt and a Nike shoe in the water on the north side of Deer Creek. Giancola and Yoder were called to investigate. As they traveled down the hill, they passed a woman coming up the hill that was extremely distraught, Giancola said. As Carroll County prosecutor Nick McClellan began showing photos of the topography of the area, along with photos of clothing found in the creek, Allen began rocking back and forth in his chair next to defense attorney Andrew Baldwin. So what the hell is that about? Let me read that again. Photos of the topography of the area, along with photos of clothing found in creek. Allen began rocking back and forth in his chair next to defense attorney Andrew Baldwin. What do you guys make of that? Does anybody know if Kathy Allen, Richard Allen's mom, stayed in the courtroom when the pictures were shown? What their reaction was? That I don't know. That's a good question. If anybody knows, if you can answer that in the comments. Thank you, Silas. Yeah, we got to those. Patty, good to see you. Molly. Ziggy, how you doing? Grunge, what's up? Waiting to hear what was on the entire video and audio from Libby. Me too. Mark Collins, hello. Blind Squirrel. Reminiscent of the Occupy movement. None of your business. What's up? It's military, Starfire, and Longfire. BG was going to set the evidence, cut marks on fire. No glitter, unspent shell casing that Allen ejected. We'll continue with the article here in a minute. Pitbull Mom, what's going on? BD says the focus has been on the amount of blood at the scene, just didn't add up for a lot of people. What is your opinion on that? Seems like there was a ton of blood. And what we're learning too is that there was blood on multiple trees. There was a puddle of blood on a tree on the other side of a tree near Abby. And there was blood all over her as well, soaked into her hoodie. So I don't know how you're going to explain why her clothes were wet and why there's blood everywhere if they were killed and brought back there. Doesn't make any sense. Don says, sounds like old Russ is on the Odin bandwagon. Yeah, I don't know if he was quoting that or if he believes that, but I keep hearing some will just kind of breeze right past that and some will focus in and say, oh, they were in specific shapes. But we've all seen the shape of the sticks and how they were placed. So, I mean, if anybody thinks they're placed in a specific shape, what are they shaped as? Nobody can say. It's a good question, Truffles. Good to see you, V. Yeah, kitty cat. I'm going to give you guys my theory, and it's going to be extremely crass, and some of you might even consider it in bad taste. But that's the one thing I think that's key to this case, understanding that crime flow and what that all means. I think I figured it out. So I apologize ahead of time if I offend anybody. But we're going to go into that a little bit later. With the crime scene photos already being released and the family seeing them and all of the details already kind of out there in the public, I think now is the time to kind of go into that. Give you my amateur profile and theories here. Try to step into my Will Graham. Hurry back, D. All right, make sure you guys hit the like button. Go share this on X, your YouTube channel, Facebook, whatever. We'll get some more folks in here. Curious what the black stuff on Libby is. What do you mean the black stuff? The boxes? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Molly. It's pretty big. Especially on the ground like that, where it sucks up, where it's going to suck up and absorb most of the blood. Miss Smalla, how you doing? No even approximate time of death. Blood flow was controlled by the position of the girls and the temperature. Ground was warm enough for some of the blood to be absorbed. Yeah, and it really doesn't matter what the temperature is. When you have dirt, I mean, it's just natural for that to happen. When I was a young kid, um, there was these apartments I used to hang out with, and apparently one of the guys there walked out into the desert nearby, and he had taken his own life. And I remember us kids, we were curious, and we went back there after they had kind of cleared the crime scene, and it was really a small, maybe a 2 foot circular puddle, and it just looked really strange. But it had all kind of been absorbed by the ground. It wasn't very big. It might even have been smaller than that. Maybe like a 1 foot, like a 1 foot circle. Yeah, those are good questions, Silas. Immense amount of blood. Yeah, there was tons of blood on both victims, multiple trees. Hey, Yonder, thanks for the email. I'm reading that article now. As a matter of fact, let's continue on here. Once the searchers said they believed they had found the girls' bodies, Giancola said, becoming emotional, I could see something whitish in color. It was the body of the girls, deceased. One was nude and one was clothed. Both had large lacerations to the throat and blood on their persons and underneath. See, there's blood everywhere, guys. I don't know why people want to lie about that. Let's just try to stick to the facts. Giancola said he did not administer life-saving measures. Quotations, it was apparent they were deceased. Estimating he was approximately 10 yards from Abby and Libby. Giancola said he and Yoder secured the crime scene, and within moments, ISP troopers started to show up. Ground zero. When Olahi arrived at the Morning Heights Cemetery on County Road 300 North on February 14th, 2017, he had been told the girls did not die due to exposure. Quotations, I received a phone call from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office about 2 missing girls that had been found deceased, and the department required assistance at the scene. He said with 2 victims, Olahi said he knew it was more than just a simple crime scene. The officer said 2 girls appeared to have been murdered. They didn't die from exposure, he said. They had been out all night. The officer told Olahi they suspected it was most likely homicide. And Olahi made his way down the hill. He told officers to mark off the crime scene very large and broad. Investigators designated the space 20 to 30 feet around Abby and Libby as ground zero. Another area was marked another 10 to 15 feet outside ground zero. Within those zones, only CSI were allowed. The crime scene barrier was expanded about the size of a football field to help preserve any evidence that might be found. And we'll pause there. What's up, Bismo? Champagne Problems. Good to see you. Welcome in. Cindy says, Sleuth, how could some clothes be on the south side if they were thrown in the water the next day? They would have drifted downstream like the others. Am I missing something? They were also found upstream. Yeah, I'm going to give you my theory. I'm going to do my best to tie it all together. My intentions are not to offend anybody either. We all know how brutal it was out there. Thank you for that, Pitbull. Hey, Thersmere, good to see you. How you doing? I wonder if the ground was soft enough to absorb the blood. Also, blood isn't super thin like water, for example. It's kind of thick. Yeah, gets kind of spongy. Like it'll, instead of absorbing into the ground, it's almost like it'll lift the ground up into it, if that makes sense. And it kind of thickens above the ground. So instead of kind of absorbing into the dirt, it'll kind of pull the dirt up from the ground into the blood. Homie, don't play that. What's up? What's up, Jake? Kate says, I heard Libby was saturated in blood, not the area around her. From my understanding, it was all over her hands, all over her neck, and all over her body. James Cope, what's up? Rocking back and forth can't be a good look for the jury. That's what I'm saying. Telling you guys, I give him until end of day tomorrow. He's going to change. I think he's going to plead guilty. Because the more and more we hear, the more and more ridiculous this idea that the girls were taken away. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Good to see you, Phil. Elizabeth Jones from Scotland. Guys, we are worldwide. Shout out to Scotland. Oop, I got something for you.
He wasn't right in the hat.
Just for you. Thank you, V. Shout out to my mods. You guys rock. Richard Allen was reacting to the photo evidence. Apparently that was his only reaction. Rocking back and forth, taking notes. No emotion are the reports I'm hearing. Sensei says apparently his mom was crying when she saw the pictures. Yeah, I don't care if you saw those photos a million times. If you're looking at them and the victims' families are there, the jury's there seeing them for the first time, the accused family, how do you not react? Yeah, there was also blood on a tree near Abby on the backside, opposite to where she was laying, but pretty close to her. He wasn't going to just conceal evidence. He was going to destroy it. What's going on, Sands? Can't believe the trial some of us have been waiting since day one for has finally started. Yeah, it's not looking good, guys. As many of you are rooting for Richard Allen, and that's good and fine. You know, he needs that. We need that to preserve, our constitutional rights. It's just not looking good for him at all. You know, you have all these people criticizing the investigation. I mean, they're just riding the coattails of the defense. It's really strange. They made plenty of mistakes. That has nothing to do with Richard Allen's guilt. Unsilent Bob, what's up? Shifting in his seat, looking at crime photos reminds me of Israel Key's interrogation videos, where he's always moving and shifting when he discusses his murders. Yeah, I have some of those interrogations. And those are the vibes I get from Richard Allen. Israel Keyes had he had a daughter also. I always bring up that whole concept of duality. That's why I don't think Richard Allen ever hurt his daughter. Susan Lee, welcome in. Pools of blood. So tell me, if they were killed somewhere else and dropped there, why are there pools of blood? Was there another creek they went through before they were dropped off there? Why are the clothes that they're wearing, why is it wet? Or damp, I think was the word used. Carlos says, I'm now realizing how unfortunate that the proceedings are not publicly shared. I have heard different creators, whether present or getting into from the source, interpret an entirely different spin. Well, what's important is that the jury hears it directly, firsthand. That's why I'm not giving you guys my spin. I'm reading it directly from the reporters that were there, and then giving you commentary after. Yeah, I agree with that, Molly. Kelseries, what do you all make of what's that, Jim? I don't know what you mean by that. Sorry. Yeah, I agree, Shadow. And I knew he would be. Cheek says, from what I understand, his family stayed in the courtroom the entire time. I'm not sure about a reaction. I did hear that Richard Allen was rocking and also talking and possibly laughing during this. That's not what I heard. I heard he was rocking, taking notes, and absolutely no emotion on his face. Yeah, that's true, Molly, including myself. So even what I say in your mind, you're going to put it through your own filter. But the key is not to lie, right? We heard lies about the yellow rope. Everybody's like, oh, the sticks were runes and they drained them. They hung them up with a rope and drained them of their blood. That's why there's no blood at the crime scene. Well, now we're hearing completely different things. A lot of it's just really ridiculous, honestly. Yes, Truffles. The audio and video will be played. The defense right now is just fighting for trying to keep anybody from trying to insinuate, to the jury. Like, they don't want anybody giving testimony about what's being said or heard on the audio or what's being seen on the video. They want the jury to make up their own mind. They don't want Jerry Holman up there going, okay, now pay attention right here. You're going to hear a gun being cocked. And I know it's hard to hear, but you can kind of make out Abby and Libby talking about a gun. They don't want any of that. They just want to play it and let the jury make up their own mind. They even don't want it to be repeated. But the truth is, you got to have that repetition so you understand what you're hearing. So I don't know why they wouldn't want that. Like, if you can't hear the word gun, well, I'm going to need you to replay it so I know for sure. Shit like that, that's just really ridiculous. It's not a good look. I mean, their whole theory is absolutely ridiculous. A little one says clothes in the creek bothered him, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm going to give you guys my theory about all of that, about what I think exactly happened out there and how it played out. Kitty Cat says Hidden True Crime also reported Richard Allen was rubbing his chin back and forth a long time, then rocking. Baldwin put his arm around Richard Allen a long time. I mean, he's been in that courtroom a million times. He's going to do his best to coach Richard Allen. Like, hey, you need to stop doing that, or don't do this, or whatever you do, don't do that again. The rocking is a way some people comfort themselves when very anxious, etc. I do it. It's a soothing response common in people that have experienced trauma, especially childhood trauma. It's interesting. Thank you. Molly says rocking back and forth could indicate restlessness, anxiety, and burning off energy. Could also indicate being upset, self-soothing. Hard to tell from not seeing it. Thank you, Kelseries. You rock for that. Yeah, don't be a scrub, guys. Hit that like button. Beth says Richard Allen rocking back and forth when the pics were shown sounds like sensory overload for him. Like stimming to cope when overloaded or control outburst. Later, TC. Oh, here's a scrub report. 264 in chat, only 62 likes. Welcome in, Elizabeth. Part of his karma. Yeah, Bismil. They have to. They're not going anywhere. You will not shake them. I guarantee their eyeballs are burning a hole in the back of his head. You're going to look at what you did to my kids, is what they're thinking. Exactly, Violet. Because that information's been withheld. You know, people trying to sell a wolf ticket. Thank you, Pitbull. Yeah, shout out to all of you donors who've been hitting up the Cash App and the Venmo. I appreciate that. I couldn't spend all my time doing YouTube if you guys weren't supporting me. So as long as you support me, I can justify spending the time that I do. So thank you. And all of you members as well. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, Cheek says it's is outstretched to the tree because he pulled her just a little bit and he basically killed Abby right where they found her. And I feel like she was unconscious when he slit her throat. And I'm going to give you guys my explanation and interpretation. Hey, Rainy Days, what's up? I don't know, Red Queen. Good to see you. Hope you're feeling better. Ellen Kelly, how are you? Time of death will be gone over today with autopsy report. Okay, thank you. And if you guys have any information that you think is relevant and you think we should be talking about it, send me an email, sleuthintuition@gmail.com. I'll pull it up and we'll share it with the group. Yep, I heard that too from Frank Meister. Libby's eyes were open. Her mouth was open too. So the theory that I'm going to present to you guys today is disturbing as it is. It's going to include all of the updated information, and it's based on factual information, not some cockamamie ideology. Oh, is that true? Abby's jeans were inside out. Where did they find her pants? Pink ankle sock. That's what must have been in the creek. Kitty cat part 2. These were also found in the water. Handkerchief, white, gray, or bandana. I wonder if that was the face covering. Dark sock. Abby's hooded sweatshirt. Yep. And that's what we kind of determined long ago. Common soul size large 10, 12. That's interesting. Now, where were the jeans? Because I know that if Abby's wearing Libby's jeans, where are Abby's jeans? They must have been found in the water as well, just not photographed or leaked like the other photos were. Very disturbing, Violet. That's why it's not funny to try to explain all of these facts that are pointing at Richard Allen. It's not funny to create some kind of strange conspiracy that doesn't exist based off of some interpretation about sticks and people that weren't even at the crime scene. It's not funny. And the jury's going to see right through it if they haven't already. So regardless of what fuck-ups the investigative team did, the evidence is pointing right at Richard Allen. Stacy says she was dragged 10 feet. And I'll explain that as well. Video picked up sound, showed one of the girls getting hit with the firearm. I'm going to try to avoid any of that speculation today, Molly. Sorry. I'm going to try to stick with the facts today. Yeah, I haven't seen him either, V. Pete says, I was told by two different people inside the courtroom yesterday when crime photos were shown, Richard Allen was smiling and nodding yes and rocking back some. And the jury noticed. Thank you. CJK says, because the Odin pushers wanted to spread sensationalism regarding the lack of blood. Yeah, I mean, they're still pushing it. All based on the fact that the sticks are some kind of a signature and that there was a ruin written in blood. That we know that that's not true now. So why are they pushing that? It's because they really want Richard Allen to be set free. But every day it becomes more obvious and clear to me. And of course, I don't know for sure, but I mean, he's looking guilty. A lot of the information has been released. And their only answer is, oh, well, the phone somehow turned on at 4:33. Betsy Blair saw a car that wasn't Richard Allen's. And that is it. That's it. And that shit don't make any sense to me. Betsy Blair could have gotten it wrong. And the phone could have had water damage. And from my understanding, Richard Allen has no alibi. Not even even if anybody can't corroborate it, what is it? Now, I'm not here to stick up for these investigators. They fucked up. I could care less about them. They have no more control over these facts than we do. I don't give a shit about McClellan. I don't give a shit about Judge Gold. All I care about is the truth and what happened to Abby and Libby. And I damn sure don't want to see it happen to anybody else. And the facts right now point at Richard Allen. Ellen says the terror the girls experienced. Yeah, we're talking about a real life horror movie here, guys. This isn't something to joke about. This isn't something to make up some weird conspiracy theory about. Riding the coattail of the accused defense team, knowing damn well it's their job to make him look innocent or create doubt. Like, shame on you. I can understand if you want to talk about those things, but to ignore the information and the facts against Richard Allen, that's all I can say is shame on you. Oh, well, it was junk science. Bullshit. That same junk science just this year has gotten 3 to 4 people released from prison. So should we put them back in jail then? Is that what you're telling me? Kate says, do you think there is more audio from the cell phone? Yes. I believe there's a conversation about, hey, is this creepy guy still behind me? And Abby says, is the creepy guy still behind me? And Libby says, mm-hmm. And then before you know it, it's guys. I think he says it kind of in a way that we haven't heard before. Like, hey, you guys are coming with me. I need you to go down. We're going to go down this hill. And they're like, no, we ain't going anywhere with you. And then he gets upset. And I believe he might even hit one of the girls, possibly. Who knows? But that's when we hear the recording, guys, get down the hill. And them say, gun. He has a gun. I think that's what we're going to hear. We're going to find that out. Okay, thank you, Audra. So we'll finish this article in a minute. Let's go take a look at WTHR. And if you guys have links and you want to save time, send me an email. It's easier that way. Yeah. For instance, I can't find that report. So if you guys can email that to me, any updates, we'll go over them. What's up, Candy B? Me too, Ellen. Elizabeth says, deepest condolences and prayers to all family and friends of these girls. 100%. No effects. Thanks for flexing. Thanks for supporting the channel, man. Welcome in, Shane, Mustang. Don Spain, what's going on, man? There was arterial spray at the scene. How are people saying they were killed somewhere else? I don't know, man. That's what the defense is trying to say. That they were taken and brought back. Holly Shank says, Richard Allen is innocent. Sure he is. I mean, I'll hear you out. But don't tell me it's because of a yellow rope. Don't tell me it's because of ruins being left over the bodies. Don't tell me it's because they were taken to another location and brought back while Richard Allen was at home. I'll hear you out. As long as you don't give me a load of crap. I would love to hear what you have to say about it. That isn't being spoon-fed to you by the defense team, who has already been kind of being caught by the jury misleading them. Yep, for sure, Stacy. Agree to disagree. Audra, thank you. Curious Charlie from Cape Town, South Africa. Big up to South Africa. Told you guys we're worldwide. Worldwide, wide. Thank you, Audra. All right, you guys, let's pull this up here. Telling you, this is a group effort. The goal is to consolidate. Oh, you know what? I think I have seen this. This looks like what they've been updating, right?
Accused of murdering them enters. More than 7 years after Abby Williams and Libby German were killed, the trial for the man accused of murdering them enters its third day. Thanks for joining us here on WTHR Plus. This is your Delphi debrief. We're going to hear from our legal analyst, Katie Jackson Lindsay, in a moment. But first, we want to take you to Delphi, where our senior investigative reporter, Bob Siegel, spent today in court where jurors were shown graphic images of the crime scene. Bob?
Hey, Scott. I had a chance to be in the courtroom today along with Emily Longnecker. We both were able to sit in the first row to watch today's deliberations. And, you know, Emily, we knew that the
Hey, Shane, what's up?
were going to have this day come. We knew that the jury was at some point during this trial going to see these really graphic crime scene photos at the scene. That day was today.
Yeah.
It was hard for the families. It was hard for the jury.
Yes.
It was hard for the reporters.
The
it was
journalists.
hard for everyone in there today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I was in the afternoon session, and as they were talking about evidence collection, they walked the jurors through evidence collection using those crime scene photos and how they processed both of the girls' bodies there at the scene. And at
We're
one
everywhere.
point, the juror that is in the front row, a gentleman closest to the public seats, closest to our seats, he sat there like this.
Yeah.
And like this, and at a couple times closed his eyes, and you could see people still uncomfortable in the jury with those photos, which
Yeah.
I know that they saw this morning when you were there, but still, I think it's still difficult every time you see them.
Absolutely. So it was a graphic testimony today, very difficult testimony today. Let's get you started by understanding exactly who took the witness stand today. So the first, or I should say, the folks who took the stand, who spent most of the day talking to the jury, it was Jason Page, Dwayne Dotsman, and Brian Olahai, I believe is how you pronounce his name. They are Indiana State Police crime
Lily.
scene investigators, and the three of them worked together to process the Delphi murder scene back in 2017. And there was one other person who testified today, that's Darren Giancola. He's a detective with the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. He was the first law enforcement officer to actually see Abby and Libby's bodies. So they walked jurors through what they saw on the day the girls were discovered murdered, and they showed really these gut-wrenching pictures that they took that day, showing not only where the girls were found, but also their injuries, right?
Very close-up photos of their injuries.
So the jurors got to see 117 crime scene photos that the three crime scene investigators took back in February of 2017. And again, we want to warn you right now, what you're about to hear, even hearing us describe what we saw in court today, it's disturbing. The pictures show Abby and Libby lying in the woods with their throat slit. Libby's body was naked. Her face and her hands were covered in blood. Abby was found in jeans and a sweatshirt, blood on her neck, deep wound, you could see on her neck. Investigators testified that an area of the ground near the girls was saturated in blood, and jurors got to see a picture of that. They also saw a picture of blood on a nearby tree.
Right.
These are the types of images, Emily, that once you see them, you can never unsee pictures
Never
like
unsee
that.
them. Never unsee them. And of course, they're up there on a big screen for the jury to see. It's a large screen. It's right there in all of its really gruesome detail. And we walked through some of those this afternoon with CSI investigator for Indiana State Police, Brian Olahai, that took us through those photos, first starting with photos of the items they found in the creek and what was found there, what
What's up,
was
necessary?
collected, how it was collected, and then moving to the crime scene. And that's where the crime scene photos came up.
Right. And that crime, the video monitor, it's on the far side of the courtroom from
Right.
jurors, but it's so large that again, some of these pictures almost seem larger than life. That they
Yes.
took. Some of the pictures were taken from the air, some from on the ground, and the witnesses, they had this special pointer where they could go up
Right.
and point things out
Right.
and the evidence that was in these pictures to the jurors.
And also the same scene, different angles. So all kinds of different angles, all like a 360, if you will, of all different angles of the girls' bodies.
Yeah, and we're talking again, 117 photos of the crime scene is what the jurors saw today. And some of those, I'd say about half of them, extremely graphic, showing the girls' bodies.
Yeah.
And those were really hard to look at. And
I don't
as
know,
you mentioned
Ann.
earlier, some of the jurors were, they seemed shaken seeing these pictures.
Absolutely shaken. Even, I mean, this was the first time for me seeing them this afternoon. I know you saw them this morning. So it's difficult. I don't know any other way to describe it. It's gut wrenching is very appropriate.
Yeah, and so one of the jurors who we know from jury selection, he works around kids. He works at a school district. There were times that he just put his face down in his hands. There were other times where he just leaned back.
Yeah.
And he put his hands on top of his head. I saw
Yeah.
another juror. As she was looking at the picture, she just
Thanks, Carla.
over and over again, just taking long, deep breaths, trying to.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I think they expect Richard Allen to be acting the same way, don't you? If you're looking around the courtroom, everybody's face is flush, their jaws drop to the floor. Some have their head down, they can't look. And then you just have Richard Allen looking up, rocking back and forth in his chair, taking notes and rubbing his chin. I just don't think that's a good look. I don't think it says, hey, I'm guilty or this. I just don't think that's a good look. Everybody that I've heard of that was in the courtroom when this happened says he's the only one in there that didn't have any emotion on his face.
Relax herself and just take in these pictures. It was very emotional for members of the jury.
I was also noting what Richard Allen was doing while some of these photos were up on
here
the
we
screen.
go.
Sometimes he was looking, and sometimes he had his head down and he was taking notes in his book or his paper. So sometimes looking at them, reading glasses on top of his head, and sometimes taking notes. So
Let's talk about the families, because again, of all the people in the courtroom today, the most emotion that we saw was from the family, as you would well expect. This almost 8-year nightmare that they have been experiencing since 2017. The families, they got a chance to see the pictures that the jury saw. They got a chance to see them on Saturday afternoon. And we were here at the courthouse when the families came out, and they were very, very upset, some of them wiping away tears. They got a chance to see these photos on Saturday. I spoke to one of the family members today. He said that was a chance for them to be able to digest these pictures before they were going to be in court today. Right. So it was I think a good thing for them, but obviously incredibly difficult. Today, they were still in tears in the courtroom, and both Abby and Libby's moms were there at times. I saw them crying. I saw them looking away. They didn't want to look at the screen during some of the most graphic evidence that was put up on the screen for jurors to see.
I mean, I would describe this afternoon from what I could see. I was able to see the reaction of Mike and Becky Patty, Libby's grandparents who raised her. They were pretty stoic this afternoon,
Sparky.
I would say. I think, as you said, they've had time to process this since Saturday.
Anything I like, good to see you.
The horror of what they've seen. So I would describe them as stoic by this afternoon.
So the purpose, I think, for the state of showing all these pictures was not just to allow the jury to see the injuries to the girls and where they were in the woods, but it really was also for the jury to understand how the investigators collected the evidence.
Right.
talk about that a little bit and to help explain for our viewers the term ground zero that we heard a lot about today.
Right. And we heard that a lot from CSI investigator Brian Olahai. And he said when he got the call to go to this crime scene to basically lead the investigation, he said, I knew this was going to be more than just a simple crime scene. So
let's go to Lucky's comment here. It says rope, box cutter. Well, I'm going to stop you right there because the rope has been explained. See, that's the point I'm trying to make right there. He didn't have any rope.
he went into it knowing that this involved two young girls, and they believed at this point that it was a homicide, a lot of trauma. He described the area about 20 feet around the girls' bodies as ground zero, and then even 15 feet beyond that as an area that very few people got in. I think he testified maybe 4 people, including himself, were in that area before the bodies were transported away.
And the investigators talked about the fact that the vast majority, in fact, all of the important evidence that they collected from the crime scene was in that immediate area right around Abby and Libby where their bodies were found, in that ground zero area.
Right.
And they really talked to the jury, and the questions from Jim Luttrell, who was asking questions on behalf of the state,
right,
of these investigators, it seemed really designed to try to give the jury confidence in how the evidence was collected.
Right. Olahai described the scene as that there were limbs and branches.
Okay, thank you for that. Shadow says, found Abby's pants in the creek attached to her underwear. That's what I heard. Okay, so that goes to that fits in with my theory, and we'll end with that. I just want to cover all of the facts before we get into my theory.
Branches placed on the girls' bodies, and he talked about how they meticulously removed the sticks first, and that they first concentrated on Libby's body, first processing that scene before they moved on to Abigail. Investigator Olahai talked about first testing Libby's hands. Her hands, as you saw in the pictures, her hands were pretty bloody. And
I agree,
talked
Rain
about,
Dancer.
Processing her hands for any kind of DNA. And I thought it was interesting. He said that he himself swabbed the areas of her hands. First, when they were looking at her hands, they were looking at defensive wounds to see if there were any defensive wounds. Had she fought back against her attacker? And then when he swabbed her hands for DNA, he said that when you swab an area that might have a lot of blood in one area and less in another on her hands, he wanted to swab the area that was less bloody, because to swab an area that had a lot of her blood, I think this was a quote, it would scream of the individual who deposited the blood. The suspect's DNA would be muted out. Yeah. So that is why they focused more on her wrist area where there was less blood, and he described putting each swab in an envelope.
And Scott, we want to point out that there was a question that was asked directly of one of the investigators to say, did you recover any evidence from the crime scene that reflected DNA from Richard Allen found at the crime scene? And in an important moment during this trial, the investigator responded no. So we can report from today that, again, investigators say they do not have any DNA at the crime scene. Scott?
Bob and Emily, I wonder, is the defense team pushing back? In other words, are they asking hard questions of any of these witnesses or challenging them on the witness stand?
Yeah.
We did hear that today, particularly in 2 main areas. Do you want to talk about the sticks as one of the areas, the sticks that were found?
Hey, Anna.
The sticks is one of theirs. I mean, they didn't get a chance, the defense, to cross-examine yet Investigator Olahai yet, because when court let out today and the jury was sent home, the state still had Investigator Olahai on the stand. So the cross of him and all of his descriptions have not even been dealt with yet. But when I got in there this afternoon, that's when the cross-examination was starting of Dwayne Dotson. You heard his testimony this morning. So he was told, he testified that he was told to go back and collect the sticks later, 2 days later, after they were removed from the bodies. And defense attorney Andrew Baldwin asked him, so someone would have had to handle those sticks to put them on those bodies, right? And he said yes. And Andrew Baldwin said, well, so that would leave maybe hand cells, maybe DNA. And Dotsman said, well, not if they're wearing gloves. And attorney Baldwin said, well, were they wearing gloves? And Dotsman responded, I have no idea. So, but, testifying that he collected those sticks a couple days later. And basically, when asked, well, why didn't you
What's up, Brad?
collect all of them, or did you leave some there? And he said, this is a quote, we can't go picking up every stick and leave in the forest just because it has blood on it.
Right. And there was discussion and testimony given to the jury in what appeared to be a preemptive line of questioning by Jim Luttrell and the state to the investigators, asking them, by the way, this was even before the defense brought it up. The defense said, by the way, did you enter the sticks that were on the girls' bodies as evidence? Did you collect them?
Right.
And he said, no, we didn't. And he said, why not? And the investigator, Dotsman, reported to the jury. He said, well, we discussed it, and we had never before ever been able to get any DNA off of a stick. So we decided there was no evidentiary value
right.
In collecting those. So we put them aside and we left them there. And then, like you said, then they decided later to go back and get them. So that's one of the areas, Scott, that there was some push.
You caught that?
The other big area that the defense really pushed back on was a bullet cartridge.
Yeah.
Jurors saw some photographs of a bullet cartridge, an unfired bullet that was at the crime scene near Libby's body. They described, as they were looking at the crime scene and going over it very closely, one of the investigators kept seeing this little glitter, a shine of light among the leaves. And so he explained how he carefully pushed away some of the leaves in that area, and that revealed this bullet casing.
Yes, this cartridge.
And the defense, again, they really pushed back against that. They asked questions of the investigator saying, well, how did you handle that bullet? Why were there no additional pictures and video of you collecting that bullet and moving that bullet? They seem to be raising questions about the possibility that there was a lapse in the chain of custody that would maintain the integrity of that evidence.
Right. They questioned investigator Dotsman on, well, did you take video of this bullet being collected? And he said, well, no, that's nothing that we would ever do before. So, but investigator Olahai, when he got on the stand, he talked about he was the one that collected that bullet himself, placed it in the bag, and put it into his car at the end of the day, and it went to a temporary storage area in West Lafayette for one night, a locked storage area, which very few people have access to. And the next day,
chain
it was
of
taken
custody
to the lab to eventually be tested.
And again, that unfired bullet casing, that is the one piece of physical evidence. The state tested that, and they determined in testing that unfired bullet casing, markings on that, when it was tested at some state labs, they linked that back to a gun that was recovered from Richard Allen's home that they say is, that is the main evidence that the state has placing Richard Allen really in ground zero at the crime scene.
Right. But when we read through all of these court documents, you can kind of see the roadmap that the defense is going to have in attacking how the testing of that bullet goes, the science behind it. Is it legitimate? Some people, what's been said is, prosecution loves this kind of testing. Defense experts don't like this kind of testing.
Exactly.
So, but Olahai also testified this was the only cartridge collected at the scene. No other cartridges were found. And the cartridge was individually packaged by itself, by me, taken by me to West Lafayette, and placed in that temporary storage locker where there is limited access.
Thank you, Mustang.
He stressed that over and over. And I've noticed that each person, when the defense cross-examines them, asks about, so were you carrying a gun? And what kind of ammunition does your gun have?
Exactly.
trying to, suggest could this cartridge belong to one of them or someone else? That seems to be a line of questioning.
Right, because in opening arguments, we heard the defense raise the possibility in the minds of the jury that maybe this, what they refer to at this point almost sarcastically as
Just the
a
magic
magic
bullet.
It's my understanding that all the responding officers and all of the officers that were at the scene of the crime, nobody had a 40 caliber firearm. It was all 9mm.
bullet
Right.
at the scene, raising the possibility that perhaps that did not come from Richard Allen. Maybe
Hey,
it
Lala.
was a police officer at the scene who had one of these bullets or bullet casings drop onto the ground. And so there's been questioning of every one of these police officers to find out what type of ammunition
Saska.
they carried. All of them, we should point out so far, have said it's not a 40 caliber type ammunition that they
they've had.
carried.
That's
so
correct.
that takes that off the table, at least for now.
Right.
You can see behind us, it is dark. The courthouse is behind us. Things have ended for the day. Back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And certainly we have not heard the last about the bullet casing. That will become a central feature of this trial as we move along. So for now, Scott, we're going to go ahead and send it back to you. We will be back in the courthouse tomorrow morning for day 4. So for Emily, I'm Bob Siegel. Scott, back to you.
That's some good coverage. Bob Siegel and Longnecker. Let's take a look then, Molly. See what you got here. So all of the conspiracies are going, they're like dust in the wind right now. Yes, Molly. I can't pull up another YouTube channel. Probably hit me with some kind of a strike. But when it's mainstream media, they understand the fair use laws and they don't really mess with you. But if you want to go ahead and share what they're, what they're saying on their channel, we can. Yeah, and I understand that that's what the defense might think and that's what they might say, but regardless, it doesn't matter what they say, what we say, or what you say. It depends on, what kind of jury we're dealing with. And to me, if you can keep a straight face while looking at dead children, that says a whole lot. Welcome in, Susan. Says prayers for the families. I hope they get the right guys. Me too. Carol Harrison. Yeah, and if he is the killer and they let him loose, it could happen again. They need to get it right. Darlene says Greeno and Marv on her live claim he smiled and laughing during. I do not believe that, but I'm not there. They say it was smiling at photos, even if it really was the wife. Was to the wife. Good to see you, Jill. Thank you, Sparky. Shimona, it is still wild for me that there's no DNA with all the manipulation done at the scene. I'm going to explain all of that. So I think we've gathered all the facts. If you guys think I've missed anything, go ahead and put it in the chat, and then I'm going to give you my theory, and we'll get out of here. I think it's going to explain everything. Allegedly CJK, right? Boston says, I really wish the kids, Kelsey, husband, and Carrie's daughter did not see that. There is nothing good to come of them witnessing those graphic pictures. I don't know. I think it's important for them to get closure and to show strength in that courtroom. Right now, we're really dealing with good versus evil, in my opinion. And I know God's with them in there. Maybe, Miss Mala. It's a good point. No effects. There's doubt to be a woman here in a red shirt making a huge deal over the sticks and making it seem like prosecution is in trouble. Maybe. Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. I mean, I wish there wasn't any pictures to see, Boston. You know what I mean? But they know that their sisters were murdered. Somebody did it, and there's a crime scene out there. Hey, Tam B, headed to a doctor's appointment. All right, good luck. I hope all is well. He must have been well gloved and fully covered, wiped bullets down before putting them in his weapon. Yep, that's what I'm thinking, Molly. And plus, when you hear my theory, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. And remember, I'm no expert, but I spent a lot of time studying psychology on this channel, criminology, victimology, and specifically the Delphi murders. But, you know, I'm far from an expert. But I'll give you my opinion. You can agree with it, disagree with it, take some from, dissect it, whatever. Thank you, Sparky. Yeah, Don, I had enough. You know, it's one of the rules. We can always agree to disagree, but when you become a distraction or a triggered troll, we just can't have it. I don't mind if you think Richard Allen is innocent at all. I don't mind it. It hasn't been proven that he's guilty yet. So by all means. So the arguing couple wasn't real. I believe the arguing couple was part of the Subaru crew, and they're very much real. They have to do with the geofencing information that the defense is trying to get put in. But they've been completely cleared. So it's just another distraction they're trying to use. Judge Gall isn't having it. They know who those phones belong to. But the reason the defense wants to bring in that geofencing information is to be like, look, these guys were on the bridge during, while the staging and the signatures were being left at the crime scene. Why aren't they suspects? No, DNA does not mean a essay didn't happen. Can charge essay without a rape. Yeah, and that's going to be part of my theory. Yeah, Stacy, you're fine. I've actually enjoyed your comments, Stacy. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Sparky with the, look at that bicep flexing on us. Says, I love this channel. Sticks to the facts and incredibly logic voice to this case. Thank you. Rain Dancer, we still need to support the prosecution and Judge Gall mentally. The trial has just begun, and the defense will try to get rid of everything that would open the eyes of the jurors. Yeah, you guys can support the prosecution and Judge Gold all you want. My support has nothing to do with them. They need to do their job, of course. My support is with the family and for the truth. But yes, they need to get it right. Rain Dancer says, also deep respect for law enforcement. The job is not done with investigation. They have to continue in court, some even when they are retired. Don, I used to drink long neckers. Yeah, I wonder what the origin of that name is. Maybe it's a Native American? Long necker. Molly says, I'm frustrated with how Goal shut down this case has been from the public, but I understand that she has to protect the sanctity of trial, safety of the jurors and accused. Yep, exactly. That includes, like you said at the end there, the accused, Richard Allen. She has to protect him as well. And all this speculation sucks. All this game of telephone tag is awful. And we do need to make sure that the media that it, has gotten the approval of being in there and all the YouTubers and all that they do their best to keep the bias out. Because, we're still having all these rumors. Remember, there were YouTubers that were able to see the crime scene photos and still lied about it. They talked about horns being there. They promised up and down that it was runes. They just could not. They're just not honest people. They're still not honest. Even when the facts come out, they're still not being honest. And if any of these facts lead away from Richard Allen, we can't shy away from that. But the defense, even in their own words, they're failing Richard Allen. If he's an innocent man, they are failing him. They're creating some kind of strange timeline of taking the girls away, and they're basing it off like elementary things like phone pings that we all know. We've learned a long time ago that those aren't accurate. They're trying to create an alibi for Richard Allen based off of a witness that says, oh, I saw a different car there. Well, those witness statements are not even admissible in court. So good luck. I don't know if it was an arguing couple. It was a man and a woman. I call them the Subaru crew because even Cheyenne, I think, worked at Subaru. I could be wrong. But the group that showed up around, I think it was like 3:12, anywhere between 3 and 3:12, was a group of people that worked at Subaru. They walked across the bridge, walked back, maybe even gone down the 505 momentarily, and then they left. They've all been interrogated, DNA tested, polygraphed. But the reason they're not going to talk about them in court is because they have nothing to do with the case. The defense, the prosecution doesn't plan to bring them up. They're not using them to eliminate any information or to include it. They are just not relevant. Shadow says, I'm super conflicted in my feelings about Goal. I believe in transparency, and I think this is fueling the bullshittery. But I also kind of understand it's frustrating either way. Yeah, it's frustrating for me personally. But who gives a shit about me, right? Like, as much as I want to know, and I know the people of Indiana definitely must know, It's up to the media there to make sure that they're reporting this correctly and that the jury gets it right. And Judge Gold doesn't allow anybody's rights to be violated. She is doing that. So whether we get the facts right or not, that's not important. The jury needs to get it right. Because it doesn't matter. Even if we were watching this thing live on television, our opinion still wouldn't matter. Our arguments behind the scenes are meaningless. Whether we're getting it right or getting it wrong, it would not matter either way. The jury is still going to have the final say. Yep, there was a DP, and I don't know about a girlfriend, but there definitely was a DP. But it's not relevant. Yeah, thank you, Molly. I've been watching her, and I would like to pull up her channel. I can't risk it, but I appreciate that. Jim, what's up? I forget, is the death penalty off the table? No, it's not off the table, but strategically, the prosecution has removed it off the table. Usually it's something discussed ahead of time, but I believe Rosie and Baldwin are both authorized, for a death penalty case, and Nick could put it on the table at any point. The only thing is the way that this is being tried, they're not trying to explain the full story. All they're trying to say is if you want the full story, you need to ask the guy that we're going to prove kidnapped the girls. So all they're proving is that Richard Allen is the bridge guy and that he's most likely responsible. Well, no matter what, the fact that he kidnapped the girls, he's responsible for their murders. And the fact that they have evidence tying him to the crime scene, he's most likely tied in with that as well. So their point is this. If you want to know what happened for 100%, if you want to know exactly what happened down there, you're going to have to ask the guy that we prove is the kidnapper. So if you try to present the death penalty with this type of case, it puts more pressure on the jury. They're holding a man's life in their hands. And when they're just saying, hey, well, right now we just know he's the kidnapper. Yes, that led to their death. But it just adds unnecessary pressure for the prosecution and for the jury. Hey, the blue-eyed trucker. What is up, buddy? What are you up to? Brain Dancer. Silas's Bob Mata saying they played whole video from Libby's phone. Okay, they played the whole video? Okay, if you guys can find any information on that, I would like to discuss that. Here, we got something from Max Lewis. This was put out 7 minutes ago. He says, portion of Down the Hill video played in court, roughly 35 to 40 seconds of it, so not the whole thing. Brian Bunner with ISP Digital Forensics Unit took the stand. He extracted the video from Libby's cell phone in 2017. Interesting. All right, so if we can get any updates on that before we get out of here. For real, for real. A Sleuth, been listening for most of the show. I'm with you. Richard Allen's innocence is not looking good at all. It's not. And I'll be happy if you can show me something that says, hey, Richard Allen probably didn't do this. I'm going to shake it and wave it in the hand, and I'm going to stand next to you with that information. But if you keep talking to me about yellow ropes, if you keep talking to me about runes and Odinism and all of this shit based off what we already know is 100% speculation, I just can't get behind that. If you talk to me about people like Brad Holder with zero nexus, zero factual information to tie him to this case, other than, did you see his Facebook? Trust me, guys, you would see it on the screen and we would be focusing on it. Because nobody wants to see an innocent man go to prison for something he didn't do. But you got to show me something. Molly, Sleuth Intuition. I'll go read through the transcript fast and tell if anything's. Yeah, share it. Share it and let me know, because I can always pull a YouTube transcript and we can read it together. Myron, what's going on? Beginning of the end, calling it now. Mistrial. Yeah, you guys need to be prepared for a mistrial, even a not guilty, an acquittal. Like, you have to prepare yourself for that. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Richard Allen did this. They haven't done that to me, but I just tell you why I lean more towards the fact of him being guilty. Because it's not about what the prosecution is saying. Everything that they said looks 100% to me. The timeline fits. The way they're explaining the crime flow fits. Regardless of how I feel about Richard Allen, I've always thought that tool mark evidence, especially now with the technology, I do agree that at one point it was junk science, but the fact that they're using it today to get people off of crimes from the 90s and even the early 2000s tells me that they've had advancements, and those are the advancements that are being used to prove Richard Allen's guilt. So the same technology that's getting people out of prison who are falsely accused is the same technology that's being used today to accuse Richard Allen and to prove that he's part of this case. So you can't have both of those at the same time. So you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to go refill my coffee. I'm going to wait for possibly some more emails from you guys. We'll take a quick look for any updates. I'll give you my theory. And if we have nothing else, we'll get out of here. Give me 60 seconds. All righty, guys. Thank you for that. Thank you, GP. Darlene, so next up is how well did they process his Ford car interior? Yeah, they took carpet out for sure. Prob, they said no evidentiary value. Too much time passed. Maybe, yeah. Thank you, Audra. Violet. All right, let's go ahead and let's get to my theory then, because I'm not seeing any more updates. I think Longnecker and Seagal did a good job. Okay, just remember, guys, this theory, it's 100% amateur hour. And don't forget, the price you play, or the price you pay to play on the Sleuth Intuition channel, is having to suffer through my opinions. And it could be worse. So feel free to poke holes in this. I actually wrote this very quickly this morning. It all just kind of clicked in my head. Kind of had like a Will Graham moment.
You are an eye attacker.
I'm not psychic, Doctor.
No. This is different. More akin to artistic imagination. You're able to assume the emotional point of view of other people, even those that might scare or sicken you.
Something like that. Jojo, we need audio. Why can't we have audio? This case won't get justice this way. Well, we don't get to make a decision either way, so why do we need the audio? We want the audio. That Slurpee mom. What's up, Slurpee? Who initially processed the crime scene? When was FBI brought in? And will the FBI testify? Yep, it only takes one, Myron. It takes one holdout, guys, and you're looking at a mistrial. And that's what it should be. That's what it should be. Okay, guys. So I'm going to go through my crime flow right from the moment that the kidnapping happened on the bridge. So I haven't proofread this, so it was just kind of like quick notes. So this is my opinion of what happened and how the crime played out. Okay. So the killer forced the girls down the hill. Snowfall from the days prior was melting in the warm sun, causing the ground to be muddy and slippery. Abby, Libby, and the killer slid and were slipping and sliding down the hill, all three now covered in mud. The killer leads them as far out of sight as possible. That would be just under the Weber property and near the creek's edge. On the north side, he forces them to undress, leaving a scattered pile of mixed clothing. The killer successfully completes some sick fantasy that does not include him physically touching the girls. He most likely memorialized this event with photographs. I bet you he has those photos hidden away, buried somewhere very personal and private. If the killer did discharge fluid, his DNA will be on the south side, not the north side where the girls' bodies were discovered. After successfully achieving his goal, the killer had a what now moment. Knowing he needs to get back to his vehicle and out of the area without being seen, he knew he absolutely could not go back across the bridge. He also knows he cannot let the girls live, and he cannot kill them in view of the private drive. He tells the girls to pick up every single item of clothing and commands them to cross the creek. Both girls holding their own pile of mixed clothes, they begin to cross the creek. Naked and afraid, holding random clothes, they slip on the slimy rocks, getting the clothing soaked in the Deer Creek, and even dropping a few items along the way. Libby clutches her phone to preserve the video evidence even though it has been submerged in water. The very moment the killer and both girls are out of view of the bridge and private drive, without warning, he unleashes a deadly attack on victim one, who is Abby. And Libby instantly attempts to run away, terrified by what this monster was doing to her best friend. He is forced to leave victim one and quickly pursue victim 2, Libby, before she has a chance to escape. This gave him a chance to spend more time inflicting much more brutality on Libby, knowing victim 1 was mortally wounded and somewhat disabled. While Abby was clinging on to life, the killer forced her to redress. He had to hide his intentions from the world and also hide the monster he was able to keep secret from the world for so long. Abby did the best that she could to assist with his demands. She passed away shortly after being redressed. Libby having ran somewhat into a visible area, the killer moved her closer to Abby where the girls were out of view of the private drive. Realizing a pair of pants were missing and the rest of the clothing had been dropped in the Deer Creek, the killer was not going back out in the open. He camouflaged the girls with sticks, gained his composure. He ejected the bullet from his gun for his own safety, knowing he was going to tuck the gun away out of sight. The killer did not realize an unfired bullet could be used as evidence. After ejecting the bullet and camouflaging his victims, he fled the area, exiting near the cemetery. I believe it was one of the investigators who stepped on the bullet while examining the victims that pushed it into the ground. Also, the iPhone 6 was had some water damage, and it was able to turn back on at about 4:30 a.m., allowing all of the missed calls and text messages to come through. That's my amateur theory of what happened and what explains all of the evidence that we've heard so far. Exactly, GP. We don't want that to happen. So feel free to share us something that's not being provided as speculation from the defense team, who it's their job to create doubt and to mislead, right? They're going to exploit the jury's emotions. Prosecution doesn't have that that luxury. They have to actually provide factual information. Darkset says the yellow rope, I'm assuming, was just so Richard would be able to get up the steep embankment. No, the rope was used by investigators. It had nothing to do with Richard Allen. They were using it to create a grid and to remember where they have just searched. So they would tie a rope off from one tree to another, search that area up to the point of the rope, remove it, and extend their grid by moving the rope further into whatever direction. So a piece of that rope was left and presented in one of the crime scene photos. The defense team used it to convince a lot of you that he hung the girls up by their leg and drained the blood. So you have to take some kind of personal responsibility not to bite or take the bait. That's on you. Hey, Frosty. Seen on a news post that defense plans to call KK to testify. Like, what is he going to say? We were all in on it and everyone is a bad guy. Now, I think why they want him is because Keegan Kline confessed to the crime, so that already kind of creates a little bit of doubt. But it also, he insinuated that he knew Richard Allen. And I think that at some point while Keegan Kline was locked up, he admitted to somebody that he was locked up with that he lied about that he doesn't know Richard Allen, and that he made all this up so that he could go on a field trip. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. All right. Sorry if I missed any of your comments. I'm going to zip down to the bottom. Welcome in, Reagan. What's up, Charlie? Alan Kelly says that works. That's a good theory. You guys are more than welcome to poke holes in it. Don says makes sense. Very plausible. Have screenshots of all the HTC reports of the video, trying to cut and paste text. Yeah, if you can send it to me here in the next like 5 minutes, we'll get to it. Because he's a little guy. He's a little guy. Yeah, I think he has like size 6 feet. Makes sense for fluids to be on the side opposite of the bodies. I wonder if Libby kicked him and there was interpretation. Kind of hope she did. Me too. Crow says, I think the girls were put in a car trunk on the driveway on the other side, killed later and dumped. Of course you do. But let me ask you, why do you think that? I'd be happy to share it here. Thank you, Sparky. The only thing I don't agree with is Abby dressing herself. I just know that she lived longer, and I have a feeling that she was alive when she was being redressed. And I believe that now because she looked like she was freezing when they found her. She had her arms clutched to her chest, and this is coming from what's her name? Is her name Susan Kendricks? So folks that were in trial yesterday that saw the crime scene photos say her eyes were open and her mouth was open, and it looked like she was cold. So if she's cold, you can't put that hoodie on her with her arms like that if rigor sets in. So it means that she was cold before she died. Vanilla Rose says, your theory is absolutely plausible. I wonder if the reason for the upward flow of the blood, because they were cut on a slope. That's a good thought. Fell backwards to lie sort of upside down. Yeah, it could be caused by the terrain, the angle of the terrain. Carlos's solid theory. Sparky, very plausible. That was the interruption. Sorry. Carter did say there was 2 crime scenes, not just one. Heartbreaking. I hate everything about this. Yep, and there's one person most likely responsible, for that heartbreak. Shadow. Kitty Cat says, theory sounds good. So if you guys are catching this as a replay crew, feel free to poke holes in that. Tell me why you disagree or agree. I wondered if Abby had enough energy left to dress and protect her modesty, but Sleuth made the point she was covered in sticks, so that went out the window. Yep. Was tried to be washed off car? What car? You have a car now? Which car is there? Seems Abby never moved after wounded. Unlikely she dressed herself after injury. I have a feeling she was unconscious when stabbed. T-Lemon, poor babies. Oh my gosh, that kills me. Oh, thank you. Susan Hendricks. Yeah, she was talking with Frank Meister yesterday, and she said it all kind of clicked when she said that the reason her hands were clutched that way, she was freezing, wearing this wet clothing. So she must have been awake and alive up until that point, just enough to be cold. And Richard Allen so determined to hide what he is and what he had done. Well, I won't even say Richard Allen. The killer, being so determined to hide who they are and what they had just done to those girls, hide it from the world, was determined to dress them both. But unfortunately, the girls had dropped some of the clothing, including a pair of jeans and a lot of Libby's clothing, and Abby's jacket was found in the water. Yeah, Shimona, I don't know how she's going to be dead and then be cold. You know what I mean? She was found with her arms kind of clutched to her chest. I don't know how he's going to put that hoodie on her and how she's going to clutch those sleeves after. Tara says could have broke them. I mean, I'm trying to make it as realistic as possible. Thank you, Stacy. All right, guys, that's going to do it. That's all of my time. Shout out to Truffles. Welcome to the Sleuth Crew. No effects. Thank you for flexing on them. Thank you, Sparky. That's a nice flex. Nice big bicep there. Shout out to all of my members. All of you mods for the continued great work, keeping everything in order in the chat. And all of you who continue to donate to the Cash App and the Venmo, I really appreciate it. You guys make it possible for me to be here and not somewhere else. So I appreciate your continued support. And we'll continue this coverage of Richard Allen's trial and search for justice for Abby and Libby. And if you are part of the replay crew, you know exactly what to do. Drop a comment and we'll get back to you. You guys need to get a hold of me or anything you'd like me to share tomorrow during the recap. Send me an email at sleuthintuition@gmail.com, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.